Hey everybody, it's Ron from Pick Dawgz, and this is Ron's Bank Shop Breakdown. We're going to go over 5 college basketball games for Friday, November 22nd, 2024. And if you like this video, make sure to hit that thumbs up button and subscribe. Put those college basketball picks in the comment section below. And if you're looking for my best bets, the games I love the most in college basketball and other sports, you can find those at the Premium Picks tab at pickdawgz.com. There's also a link in the description. Alrighty, here we go. Here are the games for Friday in college basketball. First up, a neutral site game between Pittsburgh and LSU. This one, 2:30 Eastern on CBS Sports Network. Now, LSU's done well for us this season. We took them on opening night against ULM, Louisiana Monroe, in a 95-60 win and cover for LSU. Then we took them plus the points against Kansas State on November 14th. The line opened around 4.5 points. It went all the way up to about 7.5 by the closing number. LSU still won that game outright by 11 points, 76-65. This matchup, however, I don't really love for LSU. I'm really big on Pittsburgh this season. You know, they have a lot of returning production from last year's team, a lot of D1 experience. They played 5 home games, so you could definitely argue that, you know, LSU has that game at Kansas State, while Pittsburgh's not played any game away from home, and they played a rather weak schedule, but they do have the nice wins against top 100 teams in Murray State and West Virginia, and both of those were double-digit wins by 15 and 14 points. I just think Pittsburgh's a really balanced team this year, fundamentally strong. They should be the better rebounding team. I expect them to be the team that takes care of the basketball better in this matchup as well. They're top 25 right now in both adjusted offensive and defensive efficiency, and they also have a very deep bench. This is a team that doesn't play its bench that much, but if it gets into foul trouble, I'm not too worried about it because this is really a loaded roster on paper. So I'm going to go with Pittsburgh in this one and lay the points at the neutral site. Next up, Longwood and UAB. This one, 12:30 Eastern on ESPN+. You know, Longwood's 5-0 this season, but they're also playing the 340th ranked schedule in terms of strength of schedule in Division 1. They have a win over a subdivision team in Randolph, 3 wins against teams outside the top 300 in KenPom, and then the 1 win against Milwaukee you could say is the most impressive, but still a team outside the top 200 in KenPom. UAB's taken on a much tougher schedule. They have also played, at High Point, which I think is definitely a much tougher true road game than at Binghamton, like Longwood played. And for me, I think UAB gets back to its offensive success that we saw in games against teams like Southern Miss and Southeastern Louisiana. I do think UAB is one of the better mid-major offenses in college basketball this year. And I don't think Longwood's going to have the answers for 40 minutes. I think the Longwood defense is solid, but the offense is not. I mean, they're turning the ball over left and right. They're struggling to shoot the basketball from the perimeter and 2-point range. So I think UAB can pick its number offensively, and as long as the defense does a decent enough job, which I expect it will, I think UAB wins this game and covers the number. They're a good rebounding team. They take care of the basketball. I think they win both the rebounding. I think they'll have the advantage rebounding-wise and have probably more offensive second-chance looks, and I think they'll be able to limit those turnovers, force a few themselves, and get those fast break buckets. So give me UAB in this one at the neutral site. I'll lay the points. Next up, we see Hofstra and Houston. This one's going to be 8 p.m. Eastern on ESPN+. You know, we backed Hofstra against Seton Hall back on November 13th, and that was an outright win for the Pride as a dog in that game, 49-48 in a defensive battle. We faded Hofstra in that last game against Florida State in Tallahassee. We mentioned that just matchup-wise, it wasn't a great one for Hofstra because they're having issues taking care of the basketball. They're not a great rebounding team right now, and Florida State, that Leonard Hamilton defense, looks to force those 35 deflections per game, force those turnovers, and lo and behold, Hofstra had 20 turnovers in that game. They turned it over 29% of their possessions, and that led to many easy buckets for a not-so-great shooting team like Florida State in their 18-point win and cover. If you thought that Florida State's defense matched up well against Hofstra, well, take Florida State and multiply it by 10, and that's Houston. The Cougars have been, exactly what Florida State looks to be each year defensively in the last 10-plus seasons. Kelvin Sampson's defense, they're already ranked number 2 in the country in turnover percentage defensively. They'll have a giant advantage on the boards in this game. They're a top 10 offensive rebounding team. So right there, I mean, 2 fundamental advantages I think the Cougars have, big advantages, is the turnover battle and the rebounding battle. And then when it comes to, just shooting the basketball, I mean, Houston's already 3rd in the country in 3-point shooting this season, 63rd in effective field goal percentage. They're a top 5 offense and defense in terms of adjusted efficiency. I just think it's a bad matchup. Hofstra last year played Duke, and I think a team like Duke is actually a lot better matchup for a team like the Pride. It wasn't as close of a game. It was a 21-point loss, but I'm not necessarily against taking Hofstra in these step-up games like we did against Seton Hall, But this type of matchup, just no bueno for me. I got to go Houston and lay the points. In our next game, we have Rice and Houston Christian. This one 8 p.m. Eastern on ESPN+. Now, these teams have played against each other every year for the last few seasons, and Houston Christian's done very well against the spread in the recent meetings they've covered in the last 2 and 3 of the last 4. I look for them to cover as well in this game as the home dog, potentially pull off the outright upset, but for me, I think the Huskies are much improved this season. It's a new look team, so they're kind of flying under the radar right now because it's a new head coach, a new system. Craig Dottie takes over. He was the coach at Emporia State in Division II the last few seasons. Had some nice winning seasons with that team as well. And I think, we look, Houston Christians played 2 subdivision opponents, 2 power schools in Creighton and Texas. So really none of those games tell us anything. They're battle tested, but we don't expect them to compete in either of those matchups against Texas or Creighton. And then the 2 games against subdivision opponents, they're wins. But like I said, this is going to be really the first winnable or competitive game that we should see from Houston Christian against a D1 school. And I mean, Rice is not a team I'm looking to lay points with on the road right now. That's for sure. They have a nice record on paper, but they played a very weak strength of schedule. This is a team that's turning the ball over way too much for me, over 20% of the time. They're not a good free throw shooting team, ranked 302 in the country in free throw percentage, only 64%. If you're looking to cover the spread on the road and you're up, a couple of buckets late, needing those extra few points to get there, you don't want a bad free throw shooting team to back. So I'm going to go Houston Christian. They've been competitive in this series in the past. I think they're competitive here and maybe pull off the outright upset. Next up, we see Norfolk State and Grand Canyon. This one 9 p.m. Eastern on ESPN+. I view this game as a buy low, get right spot for Grand Canyon. It's definitely been frustrating for GCU in the last couple of games, losing outright to Arizona State and UC Davis. But this team is way too talented and way too experienced, in my opinion, to struggle too much more going forward. And also a great head coach in Bryce Drew. The Antelopes are still, a great rebounding team. It's getting to the free throw line, forcing turnovers. They're, struggling in a couple of factors, taking some bad shots and turning the ball over a little bit too much, and also struggling to defend the perimeter. They gave up way too many open looks on the perimeter against Arizona State in that loss. But I look for them to sharpen up going forward. They have a giant advantage in the rebounding game in this one. Norfolk State's been probably, the favorite to win the MEAC almost every year in the last 10 seasons. But this year's team, in my opinion, just not as talented as those recent years' teams. And they played last game against Stanford on the road. They were competitive in that one, but this is a tough spot to be in on the West Coast trip. I think Grand Canyon gets right. We're getting them at a great price because of their losses. Give me GCU in this one. I'll lay the points. And that's it. Those are the games for Friday in college hoops. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. Put those college basketball picks in the comment section below. Again, if you're looking for my best bets, you can find those at Pick Dawgz Premium. As always, this is Romanelli. Good luck.